Website.
Our operation is you order online, curbside pickup. We're located at the Innovation Center. It's 201 North Forest Avenue. They have a booth set up outside, so if you need any information about how getting into business, that is where you can get a lot of information. That's where I started off with meeting Sanders, and that was very helpful to our business.
Excellent. All right, so how this is going to work, I'm going to go through just a couple of primer questions, but be thinking about your questions. I want this event to be whatever those burning questions are, whatever piece of information you came here today that you wanted to get, we want to make sure. So I'm going to roll into a couple questions to give you some time, so I'm going to throw it back to you, get those questions cooking, so we'll be ready. Let's talk about the beginning of your business. What was, and Joe, I'm going to start with you. What was kind of the thought process for you getting into food business, getting into doing food pop-ups?
Well, mine was completely by accident. I have an art degree and was a graphic designer at a magazine in downtown Kansas City. Had just started a new job, and it was my boss's birthday. So I went home, got my mother's recipe book out because I was really broke. I couldn't buy a handmade cake or a cake at the store. So I found my mother's coffee cake recipe. It was the perfect amount of ingredients that I had at home, and I had a few left over. So the next day I took one to work, and then I had a few extra that I gave to my husband, and he took to work. And I give the cake to my boss, and it's unusually quiet in there for some reason. And he walks back to my cubicle and he said, "You could sell those. Those are amazing." And then my husband texted me and he had a bunch of orders for coffee cakes. And I was thinking, there's no way. I'm not a baker. I can't do this. We have big dogs at home, you know, the old standard oven in your house. And I thought, this is impossible. But then it started clicking as I'm grinding away at my graphics job, you know, wondering if I could really do this. And so when I got home that day, I started Googling commercial kitchen spaces that I could make my product. And the Innovation Center in Independence, which Cameron's at, had just gotten started, literally. And I made an appointment, this was 10 years ago, and I made an appointment to go talk to them. And they said, once you have permits, licensing, and insurance, then you can make your product there. And that sounds like really big hurdles to get over, but once you get into it, it's just quick. If your mind is set on it, just go for it. And we got started there, and oh my goodness, we were there 10 years, outgrew the space, and then last year found our own location with a storefront and 2,500 square feet of production facility. And we're getting ready to expand even more. So I just say, trust your gut, go for it. And it's just, you know, there's ups and downs, hurdles you have to jump through, but it's the best roller coaster ride of my life. It's just been a blast, and Xander's been a big part of that. So definitely ask questions to people who are around you that can help you, because that really, you know, I had no experience in the food industry, and that just meant so much, so thank you.
And a lot of those people are in this library center right now, so ask all the questions. And I love to, because you hear it all the time, that it's one of those common threads of like, you could sell this.
And you're like,
and you, the business chose you. You're just like, well, I guess I got orders. I guess we're doing this. All right, let's roll. Cameron, can you tell us about your process getting started and getting going and starting the pop-ups?
So we began in the beginning of the pandemic. I don't know, it was a weird time. I had just got laid off from my job. And then I just got my, what's the check they give you? Unemployment check. So I had got my unemployment check, and then me and my wife, we just stepped out in faith and just like, I was like, man, what am I gonna do if this situation happens again? You know what I mean? it's easy to find a job, go hard and work. But I'm like, how can I stop doing that and start going hard for myself, for my family? You know what I mean? The pandemic taught everyone something critical. It can, just like that, to be thankful, to be grateful. And then me just thinking, oh, I'll sell food out of my house. Nope, you can't do that. Information is key, like Xander said. I didn't know what to do, so business license, insurance. This is something I'm a high school dropout. I got my GED, so information like that was just like hurdles, like she said, it's hurdles, but it's something that you can get through as long as you're not scared to ask for help. You know what I mean? I'm Samoan. I come from a big family. The help is there. Then I just so happen to research. I'm still didn't know nothing. My wife has an accounting degree. Like I said, I'm a high school dropout. Just trying to figure out what my niche in life can be. And then, like Jill said, we came across the Innovation Center. So much information. It's taught us what we needed to do the right way, you know, licensing, permits. From there, we just continue to build, being consistent, you know what I mean? Stepping out in faith and believing in you. The thing about businesses and new businesses, we get a lot of people who can hype us up. I'm gonna hype you up, believe in you. But none of that stuff matters if I don't believe in myself. So, off of all of that, my family, my wife, my siblings, believing in me, I had to change my thinking to say that I believe in myself, I trust in it, obviously because they trusted me. You can ask Xander, my first pop-up, or our first pop-up was horrible, but it was great. We sold out, but we learned so much in that first pop-up preparation. You can never be over prepped. Xander had me in his office the next day. Mind you, we couldn't. It's the school district, so I'm like, man, I gotta go. I'm high school dropout. I gotta go see the principal. But I learned so much in that meeting. Like, he was like, Cam, you failed, but you failed in a good way. Like, them people was out there 2-3 hours waiting. He was like, but you got something. But by him trusting in us, my family trusting in me, I believed in myself, and we just keep moving. We're about a year and a half, and now we're trying to get like my sister Jill right here, you know, motivation. That's what innovation and people like Xander, your community. So now we went from our day one, now we're about a year and a half in the business. And we keep on pushing and keep on pushing. Yeah.
You made me sound so much more wise in your description. But yes, oh my gosh, that first pop-up was crazy. But now, in retrospect, I'm like, that's crazy good. At the time, I was like, but that's part of the process. So don't be afraid of that. That, like you said, so much learning came out of that. If you just weren't afraid to like take that jump, take that leap and go, all right, let's give this a go and be ready to take that and take in that information. And every subsequent pop-up has just been getting better and better. So it's been awesome. Yes?
Explain a pop-up.
Oh, that's an excellent. Let's go ahead and talk about that. So, a food business pop-up is you don't necessarily have a bricks and mortar location at the time that you're doing this. It is a cost-effective way to get a business going to just pop up somewhere. Quite literally, you take the tent and the table and your product and your team and you show up somewhere. Ideally somewhere where your customers are going to be, but you do some research ahead of time, kind of figure out, all right, what is and it kind of goes into this concept of, do you know MVP? Not most valuable player, but minimally viable product. So as you are getting started with your business, this is a concept of, what is the minimally viable value proposition? what is really the thing that customers are paying for? And it's not necessarily the building, it's not necessarily the decor or the ambiance. In some cases that is the case. But for a lot of food businesses, the minimally viable product is those food products and maybe a limited selection of those. So if you've got an idea of a whole product line of different things you want to offer, narrow down what are the 1, 2, 3 maybe flavors, products that I think that I've been getting the best feedback on, that I think are going to sell the best. Let's rock those out, get a tent, get a, maybe it's a virtual or ghost restaurant location. Maybe it is that you are just popping up in the parking lot of a hardware store. It can look a lot of different ways. But basically, you are taking your product somewhere where your customers are, and you are quite literally just popping up, popping down, and then the next time you figure out, maybe you pop up back at that same location, or you identify, hey, let's try these different spots. And there are a ton of advantages and some challenges to that strategy. But the big one is it is a cost-effective way to get rolling, so you're not right out of the gate spending all the money on a location if you're like, oh man, that wasn't the location. And now we got a building here with a bunch of equipment. Maybe I should have just popped up real quick and tested this out. Yes, you got a question.
Yeah, so with that, do you still have to have your licenses, innovation centers in Independence? So if you wanted to maybe do a pop-up in Kansas City, right, or Raytown or someplace, does that mean we need to go through the entire health permit process and all that again in a new city and all that?
From what I understand of the licensing and permits in Independence, they are good for everywhere. However, that being said, another thing with pop-ups is you can do all kinds of events. That's also considered a pop-up. You can research the chick events, Just for Her. Union Station has a maker's fair. We did that early on. But then they usually give you paperwork, or you can contact the City of Kansas City Health Department, and they will walk you through getting a temporary permit to sell your product there or do a pop-up. And it's generally the same with other cities. Overland Park, you need a temporary permit, things like that. But for your business license, you'd be good with just your Independence license. There's so many licenses, I know it sounds confusing.
It does get a little, so as something that I always tell the businesses that I work with, if you are popping up or doing something in a location that you have not done it before, let your local mentor, expert, business resource, whoever, or maybe it's that event coordinator, whoever that expert is in your life, or maybe it is just reaching out if you know who the local health authority is in the jurisdiction. But I always tell them, let me know. I'll tell you which health authority it is, and I will connect you with that individual, because there are, depending on the city, county, and state, and we're on state line, it makes it terribly more confusing on where is this event regulated under, because you likely will need to get a new permit, new something in a new location. But like Jill was saying, you can do temporary events, and that might be a very common strategy, that maybe your pop-up is the home base is a shared location. If it's a shared kitchen, if it's, your buddy's got a restaurant and they're cool with you chilling out there at 2 a.m., that you are actually doing the prep work, and that's where you got your home permit. And like Jill was saying, it doesn't matter where that is in the metro. You have options to go other places. You're not stuck. If you set up your home base in Independence or in Kansas City or on the Kansas side, There's a permitting process to get there, but there's nothing stopping you from going across state lines, doing events in the whole metro wide. The trick is you want to talk with that expert and just make sure, because what you don't want is that, health agent, you're like, wait, oh, you're with a different group. Uh-oh. So in this case, it is always better to ask that question and ask that permission. Forgiveness is not what you want to roll with here, because you just spent a lot of money on product and time and staff to go out and get this whole thing, marketing to get this whole thing going. So definitely connect with those experts. And again, a lot of them are part of this event. You had a question?
Yeah, I will say sampling permits, not everybody does samples of their products, but we do. And sampling permits are very, very important with the health department. If you're doing samples in any capacity, there's a special permit for that that's not covered under the general everything else.
Yeah.
And I've also been noticing individual cities have been having more of those vendor one-day fees and permits. I think that they're starting to see that pop-ups are becoming more popular and they want to make money off of us. So they're starting to do actually you have to get a one-day permit with the city, and that seems to be popping up in more and more cities. With that, I did have a question. That was just kind of fun. I did have my own question. For taxes, with pop-ups, when you are in different places, there is the state tax that's happening no matter what, but there's also the city tax. So we're at the Brookside Farmers Market and we're at the Leawood Park Place Farmers Market. There are state taxes, but there are also regional taxes for both of those places. How do you manage making sure that you're charging the right amount of tax at each different location that you're popping up and that you're paying everybody correctly?
Like I said, it depends on the program you use. Yeah. If you use a Square usually will automatic add a tax, depends on what part of the city at. Because in my area, I live in Blue Hill, Sturdy Truce. The tax rate there is 5.5. If I go to Brookside area, it might be 7.6. You go down Plaza area is around 8.9. So the bad thing is every freaking area.
Little district, something, and I don't mean to scare people, but
are those on top of each other? If I'm okay, basic Kansas tax, because on Square you can click. It's the little buttons of this tax, this tax, this tax. So is it I'm in Kansas, so I click that, and then also I'm in Brookside, so I also click that, and they stack?
Typically, yes.
Okay.
So you can go on to either the Department of Revenue on the Missouri side or Kansas side, and this is the thing that scares people sometimes. And I get the Excel spreadsheet that has all of that.
Is there one that exists?
There is. It exists. Yep.
Where can I find that?
It should be on the Department of Revenue.
Okay, for the different states?
Yep. Yeah, each state then is set up differently. So you can find that. It is a lot of pages because it is all of those different taxing districts that can be different. Cameron, you're gonna say how
you covered
okay.
I have something I can cover. So we often do 3 events at once.
Yeah.
So we have different tax rates. So what we had to do, because we use Square,
Same.
we create, now depending on how you do your Square, in our store we have every flavor and we have 56 flavors. So our POS is just this huge, massive thing and 3 different sizes. But when we do events, we just have one size, a little small one, because people eat it quicker and they'll come back and buy more. And we only carry maybe 15 or 20 flavors. But for each event we're at, we have a special button that we select that's tied to its own tax rate. We just create Overland Park Farmers Market 9.1%.
Okay, yeah.
And that's the button we click every time someone buys something. But if you're at Park Place, have a different one with a different tax rate.
And you just have to make sure, on each
You're
device
choosing
that
the
you're
right
using,
one.
that you choose the right one, and that you
Yeah.
one-click
Yeah.
Because sometimes I've like rang it up and I'm like, wait, this is not the price it usually is, and then I'll go in and I'm like, oops, I had both state taxes running, and
Yeah.
I just charged them a lot in tax.
Yeah.
So it is a tricky thing. This is where, when I do bust out that big O document, if this is not your expertise, this might be one of the first things, and this commonly is, getting a tax professional, an accountant, a bookkeeper. Keep in mind, all of those things are technically different services. So your financial human, you want to have a clear conversation with that individual. Like, I want you to do these things, because I've had businesses that hire bookkeepers. And they're like, it's tax time, have you done my taxes? And they're like, that's not me, I keep the books. You don't want that, like, April 1st, and you're like, funny joke. You're like, no, you got a couple weeks to get this sorted out. So that might be one of those first services that you connect with somebody to help you out. I apologize, you have had a question.
I have a question. Pop-ups are on real estate owned by people. What's the standard contracts, agreements? How do you do that, operate? You see them and you think, do they just pull up and pop up and drive off? It's gotta be different than that.
They should not. So I'm going to repeat that question. So pop-ups that happen, I had mentioned like the hardware store parking lot.
Yeah.
That is owned by somebody else. If you show up and you're just like, I'm popping up here, you will have a conversation with somebody. So I'm going to, how do you handle this process?
So how we handle the process, if you're going to have a pop-up somewhere, you want to know where you're going to pop up. So you want to be able to say, if there's a different food business, you want to be able to go and introduce yourself. Like, hey, I'll be here. You might be, build a relationship with the community. So when you come up, you're unfamiliar, but they actually kind of know you because you introduce yourself. So, and then how we pop up in some, you can, I wouldn't say you can just pull up anywhere, build a relationship like some businesses, like I did a pop-up with a different bakery, or we did pop-ups at a restaurant or a business that is closed Sundays and Mondays, so we'll pop up on Mondays. But that's from us building a relationship and going in there, introducing ourselves.
So there's no
No, it's just,
cash?
it's more, pop-up is more of a, we took the way how farmers market does it, and kind of took a little bit of that, and then kind of like how the ghost restaurants and online, and we kind of made it pop-up, but more of a food business. So you still need to get your permits, you still need to have the okay from the property, It's almost like flea market set up swap meets. You still have to have everything approved. You can't just, I'm gonna be right here at the library in the morning, no, because the police will be there 10 minutes later, and then 15 minutes later, the food inspector will be out there.
My concern, the real estate, the property owners.
Yeah.
Being thrown off the property or arrested for trespassing, it could be.
Yeah, that's definitely can happen. But then the thing about pop-ups too, you have to remember, just because you're popping up, people like the health inspector, they can pop up anytime they want. So you want to be ready. Sanitize station, just because you don't have like say if you do the 10 method, you don't have a hand wash station, they will show you paperwork on how to properly set up a legit hand wash station, how to dispose of your grease, how to dispose of clean water, dirty water. The information's out there. They'll show you everything.
So if you wanted, it wouldn't be considered a pop-up then if you're there every day, like in front of a hardware store. They've got, or to protect your rights, your space there from.
It's kind of like we popping. It's almost like we don't have a food trailer or a food business, so we popping up. You set up. That's the whole point of it. Popping up, setting it all up. You popping up, and then people popping out to come support. So it's like you don't know. That's like one of the struggles of having a pop-up business. So my pop-up business, say we do a lot of Hawaiian food, Samoan food, chicken, pork, steak, ribs. So in my inventory, I have to be critical knowing today is a pop-up. I'm not having a pop-up tomorrow. So I have to be smart with marketing, getting to know my community, letting my people know that we'll be here. Because tomorrow I won't be here. So I will need to kind of like make sure I manage everything and prep everything right.
The one thing that I'll add in there is typically most health departments will want you to have a letter from the property owner, and that'll make it a little bit easier. Now, if it's like,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Oh,
From whom?
from the property
Property
owner.
owner.
So the safest route is to make sure, because that shuts it down right away. So if the restaurant, like a few blocks down, is like, well, I'm mad at them and I don't think they should be there. If somebody gets called, letter, boom, done. Without the letter, you're still probably, they'll go then to the, hardware store and they're like, are they cool out there? And that's just another step, and then they gotta find the manager, the owner, whoever it is. You don't want that. Just, even if it's like your good friend that owns this, like just having the letter keeps you, out of issue. But yeah, you do want, if it's private property, just like any other situation that you're like doing something on somebody else's property, ask them first. And I think too, to one of your questions, is there an exchange of money sometimes? But there's a
percentage. I've worked at somewhere it's a percentage of sell, so for a day and I paid monthly and something like that in front of. I like ProBath. It was another company. I can't remember the name over in Kansas. So I didn't know if that's how they were operating off the properties, if that was standard practice.
I've seen it, but Jill, Cameron, I mean, how does that work for you? Do you ever like pay to play on somebody's property?
I've never had to do that, but on the flip side, now that we have our own space, we let pop-ups come into our lobby and display their product, bring customers in, because it's a win-win for both of us. People will come in, our customers will come in, and then theirs will come in, and we'll get, double the traffic. I can't think of words today.
Double the humans, double the money.
More
That's
fun,
what
twice the fun. So when I bring pop-ups in, I've been there. I don't want a cut of anything. Just come in, do your thing. We'll have fun. Hopefully you get a larger customer base and vice versa. I think it just depends on the location.
I never understood that aspect.
Yeah.
And so anyway, thank you.
Yeah, and also when you're thinking of doing a pop-up, whether it's outside or inside or Kansas or Missouri, you need to think about your target market too, because depending on your product, what you're selling, you need to target that group of people. So it makes a big difference in your sales, of course, and the relationships that you build with the community.
That's excellent. So that a lot of times it can just be that synergy. It makes sense for me to be doing business together because we're both winning. I'm gonna let Cameron. Did you like pay to play in any locations or?
Oh yes, I mean our biggest pop-up I feel like was Santa Calagon. Now you definitely have to pay in some situations, but then you also have to say you can do a church event. Well, they might not charge you, but they'll say if you can just give like a donation.
But that's outside of the.
No, that's still business between you and the person who owns the property.
I mean, we're Santa Calagon, outside of their actual gates, the perimeter of the event, you have to be on the outskirts of.
No, we were inside, but you basically had, they charge per 10. It's kind of like, I'll go back to like how farmers market is. They probably charge people out there at farmers market like $20 for the day. Sometimes you can agree to, say the storefront person, you guys can agree to a number, a percentage, or sometimes they just do it out of the kindness of their heart because they want to see you grow. Like Xander said, you want to kind of hit the people you have relationships, your friends, your family, people close in the community. Somebody you probably grew up in high school with, now somebody he has a tire company, you can come out and set up in front of my company. It's just all about the right place, right time, building relationships. Building them relationships is so critical because, you know what I mean? You could be busy in a pop-up, but just how you treated the customer at that time. You know what I mean? You didn't even know who it was. That person might come back around. It happened to me at a pop-up. Blew my mind, the most humblest lady. She came back to our next pop-up. She was like, I would like to do a catering for my son. Humble. She said, it'll be in 3 days. It'll be a 3-day event, but we don't know what day left. That came back. Called me back a month later. It was like, hi, it's me. I reached out to you. Long story short, my son's getting ready to go to the NFL. But just off of me being nice and just me and her just being at the right place, right time, building a relationship that I had with the owner, she was in there. I remember I told you she's closed that day. She's like, Cam, me and my sister were working there, our 9 to 5s at that bakery. On Sundays and Mondays, she's closed. She said, y'all can do your thing. I want to see y'all go, because she was a new business. So we were helping her, she was helping us. That lady came back a month later. Her son got signed to the Dallas Cowboys. We never thought it was gonna come. It was just right place, right time, doing something you genuinely like and you love. And the pieces fell into place, you know? But yeah.
But yeah, kind of it can go any which way. That what makes sense to that business. There will be events that make sense because you know you're going to get a bunch of sales. You're like, all right, it makes sense to pay for this. And in some cases, you're like, does this make business sense? Or is there somebody super awesome like Jill who's like, just come hang out together. Hang out with Jill's fun. So there's a location there maybe for that future pub. Yes, you had a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I have had the experience of a property owner us doing a pop-up in, so let's say there's like a strip mall and there's like a bakery in that strip mall that wants to have an event and have vendors at that event. We have had the experience where the property management company of the strip mall would request that we get additional insurance for them, or for ourselves, but on their property, so that if any injury happened during the pop-up on their property, we are liable, not them. So that is an experience that has happened. That's definitely a practice that could be asked of you. And there are some locations that have a fee, like Made in KC, they have the cafes and the marketplaces kind of all around the state. They charge, I believe it's $60 for a pop-up if you want to go into their location. So it's kind of like really established businesses sometimes when they have a lot of requests for pop-ups, they'll see like, oh, this is a way that this is a new avenue of business that they can kind of tap into. So I have had both those experiences. So it's very, very based on who you're working with.
I've had questions and just no answers on some of that for a while.
Yeah.
On the other end of that, Kansas City has a lot of like local art fairs, a lot of local places that are dying for vendors.
Mhm.
I mean,
First
Fridays, third Friday art walk. I mean,
But most of them don't have food trucks behind their
most-
pop-up or off.
I go and set up a tent and serve breakfast.
Same, there's a
And
couple places like, art, what do you call them? Where they show art displays and stuff, where they'll just, I've been to a couple of them down in Westport, where they'll just come in and let you set up your table and sell your stuff right there.
It's a whole different world that, you know, it's just relatively new.
Exactly, because you gotta think about it, if you have food, you know, at an art event, that'll attract people in, the smells, you know, they see the foot traffic, people walking in and out with food in their hand, like, you know, oh, let's check this out, of course, and especially if the art exhibit is charging a fee at the door as well, they're benefiting, they come in to get the food, your benefit too.
a lot of the like revitalization districts, like Quindaro, KCK,
There's a lot of need in the marketplace, which is good for all of you who said that you are interested in food pop-ups. There's a lot of need. And I would even say as the pop-up industry matures in Kansas City, it could even be the flip of that. It could be that there is such a need that you might say, hey, I've got 5 different places asking for me on, June 6th. I want to guarantee the minimum. I want you to guarantee that I will be able to sell at at least a few $100s because that's what I'm putting into this. I want to at least guarantee that I've got my minimum investment paid back before I truck all of my stuff and people out there. So again, it just depends on that particular scenario. But I think a great point is there's a lot of need. That means business opportunity for y'all.
Next question is then an organized network of pop-up people supporting and sharing and,
Information.
you know.
Information, like sharing information.
Well, like just a net, kind of like group, I don't know what you even call it.
What's really, really valid nowadays, social media. You have so many groups like Kansas City Eats food groups, food trucks. You have a big one that's going on right now in Greenwood and Lee Summit. They're letting it be known that everybody's doing yard sales. They're gonna be having food vendors. But then that's the social media. Social media is so strong. Like the community on your inner community, your local community, the library, they have events and post them all the time that let you know about stuff like that too.
So, we probably have time for one more question. Who has that burning question? We might have time for two, but I definitely can guarantee one more question. I know that was like too much pressure. You guys were like rolling with it, you're going, but then I'm like, but for real, only the most important question, you're like, I'm out. Yes, sir.
I don't know how important this is, but I know you guys you're cooking at the innovation. How are you then transporting all of your, chicken, hot food, stuff that, needs to have a consistent temperature? How are you transporting that to events and still meeting all of those requirements?
Yeah, one of the main things I would suggest in getting into food pop-ups, food catering, is your equipment. It's so valuable. Your box warmers, wheat warmers, the chafing dishes and stuff like that. But your Cambros is going to be a name that you would love to get to know. My name is Cam, so I call all my Cambros my brothers, and I got like 6 of them. But then, because that all comes back to when you're doing these events, say if you like, we just did one at the Stony Creek. There was a bunch of food vendors. But just like there's food vendors out there, the health inspector is going to be out there. And just like a magical wand, she's going to be out there temping everything you have. So that's one of the things. Transportation, like you said, is making sure you have the right equipment to transport it. Don't be cheap on stuff like that. It's not your backyard picnic where you can just put it in a cooler and it'll still be cold. No, because if you do that, by the time you get to where you serve it, the potato salad or macaroni salad is done curl. Properly transport stuff, ice. If it needs to be cold, ice it. If it needs to be at a certain temperature, keep them in them warmer until you serve. But that is vital to your business. Did I answer it? Cool.
What's the address of that innovation center?
201 North 4th Avenue.
And they've got a table.
Yeah, there's a table right here. Miss Danielle's outside. So, and then that's what you said about transport. The lucky thing about us, Ooze Kitchen, we cook innovation. A lot of people don't know is where it's the school district. Don't nobody go to school on Sundays. So when do Ooze Kitchen do pop-ups? Sundays. So we use that because, and then the kitchen, it's like Hell's Kitchen if you've ever been to an innovation center. It's like 6 different kitchens. They're doing meal preps, we're doing unhealthy food, and she got these bomb cakes. You know what I mean? It's just a little bit of everything in there. So it can be a little chaos, but Sundays kind of works like Xander said and Jill said, you want to look at information. We looked at the calendar for 6 months out. 6 months out, nobody's in the kitchen on Sundays, so we kind of utilize that. How would you order? You order online, you curbside. How will we figure our numbers? Pre-order for about a week and a half. So we have one on the 19th. We'll open up pre-ordering tomorrow. So by Thursday, Friday, we should have a figure, a number on how much product we should kind of buy to kind of match our pop-up numbers, so we won't be having leftover food and we can kind of hit our numbers. So we sell our food curbside pickup right out of Innovation Center. But then we also do other places.
Also, if you're having issues thinking about how you're going to pay for all of the different Cambros, is that what it is? Because we pre-package and lid and label everything and put it in crates and go. But if you need to buy all of these things from the get-go and you're just getting started and you're buying all of your ingredients and you're paying for your insurance and you have all of these bills and you just don't know how you're going to do it, there are different ways you can go about it. There's a auction house in Kansas City called Asset Auctions, ASSET. They go to restaurants that have shut down and they will auction their things. You need to be a little careful and read the whole auction because some things are listed poor to excellent condition, and you definitely want to stay above the average rating because things are very used, if not. There's also equip bids. I've gotten some stainless steel tables off of that and some crates. It just varies. Sometimes you get a lot of luck and find everything you need. And then, of course, Facebook Marketplace. People are always selling their stuff. We just sold a couple phone racks, so like just look around and save some money.
I would suggest, city market's another place, cause there's tons of used people back down to city market. Retail Rebel, city market, and then, there's I wanna say Casey Equipment, they have, a
There's
showroom
not in there.
down in, the West Pollis.
So there is definitely a lot of options, and this could be a whole nother class on what can be used and bought and still good, and what you should buy new. So next year I love it. We're doing this class like refrigerators, new.
I would suggest myself, but unfortunately I sold all my
So little. So okay, this is the end of our official time. Thank you so much. Hopefully there was some good nuggets of information. I know I will be here for the rest of the day, so if you've got questions, I know you've got some hot popping businesses to get back to and busyness. So again, thank you so much, Jill and Cameron, for taking the time.
If anybody's interested, and I think it's shut off. If anybody's interested in a pop-up in Inglewood Art District in Independence, just find me on Facebook, message me, call me, text, whatever you want. Thank you.
They did this already at the beginning of what people are already doing or what they're thinking of doing.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love this. This helps.
Yeah, I think Columbia, you'd have a lot of places to
Yeah,
go. It's
because I wanna do something.
I know.
Of course, like the whole funding thing.
This one's my street.
Yeah.
Really? Okay. Yeah, these are both gonna be good for me, so I think that's.
I like the boss.
Yeah. So
I think I'll probably just take top this.
Well, that's exciting. A lot of outlay of money. And
It was so nice to meet you.
that level, what people like, what don't like, what are good prices, there's a whole science to pricing as we learned in that last one. Okay.
You're good to go. We'll see you tonight.
Yeah, I would say we do.
Yep. So yeah, it just expresses different.
So now,